The Jesus we see in many churches today, if not most, is very different from what he actually looked like.
Most of the images we see of Jesus today portray him as a light-skinned man. But what if that's not entirely accurate? There's an ancient letter that might challenge our perception of Jesus' appearance. This letter is said to be written by a man named Lentulus, who addressed it to Caesar. In it, Lentulus gives a detailed description of Jesus, and it doesn't match the typical images we're familiar with. Some argue the letter is a forgery, claiming Lentulus never existed. But if the letter is genuine, it could offer fascinating insights into what Jesus might have looked like and challenge the traditional representations. So what does this mysterious letter actually say? Join us as we explore its contents, uncover who Lentulus might have been, and dive into what his description could reveal about the real Jesus. Could this ancient account change the way we see him forever? The Divine Mercy Image. In the 20th century, one of the earliest modern depictions of Jesus was the Divine Mercy Image. This image is widely recognized and cherished by Roman Catholics and Anglicans, appearing in homes, churches, and devotional spaces around the world. The story behind the image begins in 1931 in Płock, Poland. According to accounts, Jesus appeared in a vision to Saint Faustina Kowalska and showed her the design for the image. Faustina recorded in her diary that Jesus asked her to have an artist create a painting based on what she saw. Faustina worked with an artist named Eugene Kazimierowski, who brought the vision to life. The Divine Mercy image portrays Jesus with his right hand raised in blessing and his left hand touching his chest. From his heart, two rays of light emerge, one red and the other white. These rays symbolize the mercy and grace of God flowing to the world through the sacraments of baptism and the Eucharist. Over time, the Divine Mercy image has become a powerful symbol of hope, forgiveness, and God's love. It has been recreated in various forms, including paintings, statues, stained glass windows, and prayer cards. It has also inspired countless prayers, hymns, and spiritual practices. Despite its widespread popularity, the spiritual message of the image remains its most important aspect. When Faustina first saw the original painting being created, she wept and told Jesus, "Who will ever paint you as beautiful as you truly are?" Jesus reassured her, saying, "The greatness of this image is not in the beauty of the colors or brush strokes, but in my grace." This message serves as a reminder that the true significance of the Divine Mercy image lies in its spiritual meaning and the blessings it conveys, rather than its artistic details. Of course, the Divine Mercy image isn't the only well-known depiction of Jesus. There are many others, each with its own fascinating story to tell. The Head of Christ by Warner Sallman. One of the most famous depictions of Jesus is The Head of Christ by Warner Sallman. Often called the Sallman head, this image became one of the most reproduced religious artworks of the 20th century. It portrays Jesus from the shoulders up, with a serene and compassionate expression, his gaze gently turned upward and to the side. Warner Sallman, a deeply religious commercial artist, claimed that the inspiration for the painting came to him in a vivid, almost otherworldly vision. He described the experience as a moment of divine clarity, saying the image appeared fully formed in his mind late one night in January 1924, as though it had been placed there by a higher power. Initially created as a devotional piece for his Christian audience, The Head of Christ quickly gained popularity across various denominations. It became especially significant during World War II, when soldiers carried small reproductions of the image as a source of faith and comfort amid the hardships of war. Over time, the painting became a universal symbol of Jesus, found in homes, churches, hospitals, and schools around the world. The Coptic Orthodox Church holds the Head of Christ in particularly high esteem due to a miraculous event linked to it. A 12-year-old boy named Isaac Ayub, diagnosed with a severe form of leukemia, had a profound experience involving the image. He reportedly saw the eyes of Jesus in the painting shedding tears. Moved by this vision, Isaac believed he had witnessed a divine moment. Miraculously, Isaac's health began to improve shortly after. Father Isaac Solomon of St. Mark's Coptic Church in Houston shared the story with the congregation, proclaiming that the boy had been healed. This claim was later confirmed by Dr. Atef Riscala, who examined Isaac and found no signs of leukemia the very next day. Following this event, the head of Christ became even more cherished within the Coptic community, symbolizing healing and divine intervention. This painting, already beloved by millions, continues to inspire faith and hope for people worldwide. Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci. Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci is one of the most iconic and captivating depictions of Jesus, with a fascinating backstory. This Renaissance masterpiece portrays Jesus in a flowing blue robe, a hallmark of the era's opulent fashion. He raises his right hand in a gesture of blessing, while his left hand holds a crystal-clear orb. The orb is a powerful symbol representing Jesus' dominion over the world and the cosmos. Its flawless precision symbolizes divine unity, perfection, and spiritual authority, illustrating the profound connection between the earthly and the divine. Through this composition, Da Vinci masterfully conveys the duality of Jesus as both human and divine, the bridge between heaven and earth. The placement of the blessing hand and the orb are deliberate and deeply symbolic, reflecting theological discussions of the Renaissance about Christ's nature and his role as the savior of the world, or Salvator Mundi. The painting invites viewers into a deeper meditation on Jesus' spiritual authority and the peace he offers humanity. Salvator Mundi is not only an artistic marvel, but also a window into the spiritual and mystical traditions of the Renaissance. It was designed as more than just a visual masterpiece. It served as a tool for spiritual reflection, offering a connection to Jesus through its intricate details and profound symbolism. The painting gained extraordinary attention in the 21st century after centuries of obscurity and extensive restoration work. Art historians identified it as an original Leonardo da Vinci piece, sparking global fascination. In November 2017, it made headlines worldwide when it sold at auction for an astonishing $450 million, setting a record as the most expensive artwork ever sold. The sale reignited debates over the painting's authenticity and Da Vinci's portrayal of Christ. Was it a historically accurate depiction or a symbolic representation of divine authority? The painting's mysterious history, almost lost to time before its rediscovery, adds to its allure. Today, Salvator Mundi stands as one of the most enigmatic and debated representations of Jesus, blending artistic genius with spiritual depth and a captivating journey through history. The Letter of Lentilus, a curious account of Jesus. While earlier depictions of Jesus, such as those by Salmon and Da Vinci, were often inspired by visions or artistic interpretations, there are accounts that claim to describe Jesus based on first-hand experience. One of the most intriguing and debated examples is the Letter of Lentilus to Caesar. According to tradition, Lentilus was a Roman official during Jesus' time, although his historical existence remains uncertain. Unlike visionary portrayals, this letter describes Jesus in a way that suggests familiarity from everyday encounters. Lentilus, not a disciple of Jesus but a contemporary Roman figure, offers a description that feels grounded and ordinary, in contrast to the more divine or idealized images often seen in art. This raises a fascinating question. What kind of relationship, if any, did Lentilus have with Jesus? Let's explore this mystery further. The mysterious letter of Lentilus is said to have been the governor of Judea before Pontius Pilate. His supposed letter, known as the Letter of Lentilus, provides a detailed description of Jesus and has a mysterious and debated history. Emerging into prominence during the 15th century, the letter had a significant influence on how Jesus was depicted in art. According to Christopher Milas, an 18th century librarian from Jena, the original letter was an extraordinary artifact. He described it as being written in golden letters on red paper and beautifully bound, reflecting its importance. Unfortunately, this version of the letter has been lost over time. In the 19th century, some claimed the letter could be traced back to the era of Emperor Diocletian, though most modern scholars reject this idea. Over the years, different versions of the Letter of Lentilus have surfaced. One notable mention comes from Ludolf, who included the letter in his writings about the life of Christ. Another reference appears in the works of Saint Anselm, although he was not the original author. Historical records suggest the letter was rediscovered in 1432 by a scholar named Giacomo Colonna. He reportedly found it among Roman documents brought from Constantinople to Rome. Despite its mysterious origins and debated authenticity, the Letter of Lentilus remains a fascinating piece of history, continuing to spark discussions about how Jesus was perceived during his time and how those perceptions have shaped the way we envision him today. The intriguing description in the Letter of Lentilus. What makes the Letter of Lentilus so fascinating is how closely its depiction of Jesus aligns with early portrayals, such as those by St. John of Damascus. This resemblance has led some to wonder if the letter might actually be authentic. But what exactly does it say about Jesus? How Jesus is described in the letter, Lentilus vividly describes Jesus, portraying him as a man of immense power and virtue. He mentions that some call him the prophet of truth, while his disciples refer to him as the Son of God. According to Lentilus, Jesus was of medium height and carried himself with great dignity. His hair, described as the color of ripe hazelnuts, was wavy and curly, falling to his shoulders and parted at the top in the Nazarene style. Lentilus describes Jesus' face as cheerful and free of wrinkles or blemishes. His eyebrows were smooth and he wore a full beard. His eyes were a striking blue-gray, bright and captivating. Jesus' posture was upright, and his arms and hands were described as graceful and beautiful. The letter also highlights Jesus' personality. Lentilus describes him as strict when correcting others, but gentle and kind when giving advice. He was cheerful, yet carried an air of seriousness. Interestingly, the letter notes that Jesus never laughed but was often seen weeping. Lentilus concludes by describing Jesus as the most beautiful of all people, embodying both divine majesty and human grace. A comparison with Scripture. To assess the authenticity of the Letter of Lentilus, many have compared its descriptions to biblical scripture. The letter portrays Jesus as having a venerable and awe-inspiring presence, someone who could evoke both love and reverence. This aligns with the message in Proverbs 1:7, which says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." The depiction of Jesus in the letter also resonates with how his disciples perceived him, a figure of immense love, yet unwavering justice, faithfully fulfilling his Father's will. While debates about the letter's origins continue, its detailed portrayal offers an intriguing lens through which to imagine Jesus' appearance and character. Jesus' appearance. According to the letter describes Jesus as having long hair, a detail that some find controversial. However, it's worth noting that Jesus was a Nazarene, and Nazarites traditionally took vows that included not cutting their hair. This practice aligns with the description in the letter. The letter also portrays Jesus as stern when correcting others, which resonates with Proverbs 3:12, "The Lord disciplines those he loves." Another statement in the letter claims that Jesus was never known to laugh, but was often seen weeping. This aligns with Hebrews 4:15, which says Jesus was touched with the feeling of our infirmities and tempted in every way just as we are. This depiction reflects his deep empathy and connection to human struggles, such as his prayer in Gethsemane, where he asked for the burden of death to pass from him, but remained steadfast in following his Father's will. However, one part of the letter sparks debate. It describes Jesus as the most beautiful among the children of men. This seems to contradict Isaiah 53 verse 2, which states, "He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him." Some scholars suggest this apparent contradiction arises from differing interpretations of Jesus' spiritual and physical significance. The debate over authenticity. The authenticity of the Letter of Lentilus remains a subject of debate. Some scholars argue that the letter may not be a genuine historical document, but rather an apocryphal creation from a later time. Apocryphal writings often blend historical figures or biblical themes with creative interpretations, much like the Epistle of Barnabas or the Shepherd of Hermas. While the letter provides a vivid and intriguing description of Jesus, its origins and historical accuracy are uncertain. Whether authentic or not, the letter continues to inspire discussion about how Jesus' appearance has been perceived across history and cultures. The Lentilus letter and historical questions. In the 15th century, many manuscripts did not mention Publius Lentulus as the governor of Judea. This omission suggests that the title might have been added later. Scholars believe that Publius Lentulus could have been a Roman official who visited Jerusalem or Judea, but was not necessarily the governor. The variations in manuscripts imply that different versions of the letter may have been created or altered over time. Roman officials and Jesus in historical context. Roman history records several individuals named Lentulus, who were active around the time of Jesus' ministry. These individuals served as consuls, and it was common for consuls to write letters to the Senate. This historical practice makes the authenticity of the Lentulus letter worth considering. The letter provides a vivid description of Jesus based on biblical accounts. But how does it compare to other historical records? One notable example is the letter from Abgar of Edessa, one of the early Christian kings, and traditionally considered one of the 70 disciples. In his letter to Jesus, Abgar refers to him as the good physician and seeks healing for his illness. Some believe that Jesus personally visited Abgar and healed him, though Jesus' response in the letter suggests otherwise. He promises to send one of his disciples instead. The healing abilities described in Abgar's letter are strikingly similar to the portrayal of Jesus in the Lentulus letter. This parallel lends some credibility to Lentulus's account, at least in aligning with biblical narratives. However, more concrete evidence is required to fully authenticate the Lentulus letter. Connections with other accounts. The Lentulus letter is further linked to historical writings like a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar. In Pilate's letter, Jesus is described as strict, pious, and an advocate for truth, qualities that align with the Lentulus letter, which calls Jesus the prophet of truth and notes his sternness when correcting others. These similarities suggest that Lentulus may have had direct interactions with Jesus. Early Christian art and Lentulus's description. Interestingly, despite the prohibition of religious imagery in early Christianity, art began to play a significant role in representing Jesus. These early depictions often drew from descriptions like those found in the Lentulus letter. Exploring early Christian art provides further insight into how Jesus' image evolved and whether it aligns with Lentulus's account. This blend of letters, historical context, and early art helps deepen our understanding of how Jesus was perceived in both spiritual and cultural terms during and after his lifetime. The evolution of early Christianity. After the original apostles passed away, the early Christian church underwent significant changes. A small, devoted group of followers worked to preserve the faith, but over time, Christianity began to evolve, incorporating practices and beliefs that were not part of the New Testament. This transformation happened gradually as the faith spread and adapted to new cultures and influences. Early depictions of Jesus. The earliest known images thought to depict Jesus date from around AD 240 to 256. These artists lived roughly 2 centuries after Jesus' ascension and, as a result, had no direct knowledge of his appearance or access to first-hand accounts. Rather than aiming for realistic portraits, these early Christians relied on symbolic imagery to represent him. One of the most common symbols was that of Christ as the Good Shepherd, depicted holding a lamb. In these representations, Jesus appears young, strong, and clean-shaven. Many of these early images were discovered in the catacombs of Rome, underground burial chambers, rather than in Judea or Asia Minor, where early Christian communities were originally established. Art and syncretism in early Christianity historians face challenges in determining whether these early images truly represent Jesus, as they often bear a striking resemblance to pagan art. For example, the image of the shepherd was a common symbol in pagan traditions, representing kindness and care. Early Christian artists frequently borrowed themes and styles from pagan art to communicate their faith in ways that were familiar to their contemporaries. The artistic depiction of Jesus began to change significantly after Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity. During his reign, more detailed portrayals of Jesus started appearing in churches, Constantine's influence and the rise of religious imagery. Before Constantine's era, many Christians resisted creating images of Jesus, believing it was inappropriate or even idolatrous. However, As Constantine adopted Christianity and aligned it with Roman traditions, including the use of statues and images for veneration, the use of visual depictions of Jesus became more accepted. By the end of the 4th century, images of Jesus were widespread in churches, and people began to show profound reverence for them. Some even began to worship these images. Supporters of this practice argued that honoring these depictions was a way to express devotion to their absent Lord and the saints. Despite ongoing opposition from some Christians, the use of icons and images became firmly entrenched, particularly in Rome and Byzantium, shaping Christian art and worship practices for centuries to come. The role of art in visualizing Jesus. Despite ongoing debates, art has been instrumental in helping people imagine what Jesus might have looked like. While the Bible provides some descriptions, early Christian imagery offers a more concrete way to visualize his physical appearance. These artistic depictions, combined with descriptions like those found in the Letter of Lentilus, help us better understand how early Christians may have pictured Jesus. The Shroud of Turin and the image of Jesus. One particularly fascinating artifact that has captivated historians, scientists, and believers is the Shroud of Turin, a cloth that some believe carries the actual image of Jesus Christ. Discovered in 1354, the Shroud of Turin, sometimes referred to as the Holy Shroud or the Veil of Veronica, is an ancient linen cloth bearing the faint yet detailed image of a man. This man appears to have undergone crucifixion, leading many to associate the image with Jesus. The shroud features both the front and back impressions of the figure, and for centuries it has been venerated within the Catholic Church as the burial cloth that wrapped Jesus after his crucifixion. According to tradition, the image was miraculously imprinted on the shroud, leaving a lasting impression of his body. While the Shroud of Turin dates back to the 14th century, its origins and authenticity remain subjects of intense study and debate. For some, it represents the genuine burial cloth of Jesus Christ, a tangible connection to his story. For others, it is seen as a deeply symbolic artifact, one that powerfully conveys the narrative of Christ's crucifixion and resurrection, even if it may not be the original shroud. Regardless of its true origins, the Shroud of Turin continues to be a significant icon of faith and a remarkable link to the visual and spiritual legacy of early Christianity. The Shroud of Turin, an enduring symbol. The Shroud of Turin has remained a significant symbol for Christians worldwide for over 600 years. What makes it especially intriguing is the mysterious way the image was formed. How could such a detailed impression of a human body be left on a cloth without damaging the material? Some scientists suggest that a force similar to a thermonuclear flash might have caused it. Unlike a nuclear explosion, this process would have been more controlled, leaving an image on the surface of the fibers without penetrating or harming the cloth's thickness. It's as though the image was imprinted so precisely that only the top layer of fibers was affected, creating a clear, detailed impression of a human form. The exact process behind the formation of this image remains a mystery, sparking ongoing debates and investigations. Some see it as evidence of a miraculous event, while others continue to study it to understand how such an extraordinary image could have been created. Regardless of its origin, the Shroud of Turin continues to inspire awe and devotion worldwide, making it one of the most enigmatic and revered artifacts in religious history. The Transfiguration Theory and the Shroud. One fascinating theory about the Shroud of Turin suggests that the image could have been caused by the same divine power that Jesus displayed during his transfiguration. This theory proposes that, during this event, a burst of divine energy from Jesus caused his blood to evaporate instantly, leaving his image and body imprint on the cloth, preserving a literal snapshot of his resurrection. The shroud bears a faint, straw-yellow image on the top layer of the cloth fibers. The figure depicted is a man with a beard, mustache, and shoulder-length hair parted down the middle. According to the description in Lentilus's letter, this man is tall and muscular, with measurements of the shroud suggesting the figure is between 1.7 and 1.88 meters tall, or about 5 feet 7 inches. Additionally, reddish-brown stains on the cloth align with the wounds described in the Bible's account of Jesus' crucifixion. Over time, debates about the shroud have quieted, and it is now revered as the Holy Veil, However, many people still prefer to rely on the biblical descriptions of Jesus rather than a piece of cloth. For them, the Bible remains the most trusted source for understanding the true nature of Jesus. The physical portrayal of Jesus in the Bible. How does the Bible describe Jesus? For centuries, especially in Western cultures, the most common image of Jesus has been a fair-skinned man with long, wavy, light brown or blonde hair, a beard, and blue eyes. However, the Bible itself doesn't provide a detailed description of his appearance, and the evidence we have suggests that he likely looked much different from these widely recognized portrayals. The primary sources about Jesus' life are the first 4 books of the New Testament, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These Gospels tell us that Jesus was a Jewish man born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth during the 1st century. We know that he began his public ministry around the age of 30, as noted in Luke 3:23. Despite this, the Bible doesn't offer specific details about his looks, only indicating that he didn't stand out in any unusual way. One interesting detail comes from the story of Jesus' arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane, right before his crucifixion, Matthew 26:46-56. Judas Iscariot had to identify Jesus for the soldiers because he looked like one of the many disciples. This suggests that Jesus' appearance was quite ordinary and similar to that of his followers. Some scholars point to Revelation 1:14-15 for potential clues about Jesus' physical features. This passage describes his hair as being white like wool, his eyes like flames of fire, and his feet as being like burnished bronze. These descriptions suggest that Jesus may have had darker skin and woolly hair, presenting a stark contrast to the traditional Western depictions. In 2018, a fascinating discovery was made. An early portrait of Jesus was found on the walls of a ruined church in southern Israel. Painted in the 6th century AD, it is the earliest known image of Christ discovered in Israel. This portrait shows Jesus with shorter, curly hair, reflecting the style common in the Eastern Byzantine Empire, especially in regions like Egypt and Syria-Palestine. This depiction is quite different from the long-haired, bearded image that later became so widely accepted. The evolution of Jesus' image. By the 4th century, the portrayal of Jesus began to shift. This new image was strongly influenced by the depictions of Greek and Roman gods, particularly Zeus, the mighty Greek deity. From this point onward, Jesus was frequently shown with long hair, a beard, and wearing a long robe, often seated on a throne. One famous example is a 5th century mosaic on the altar of the Santa Pudenziana Church in Rome, where Jesus is depicted with a halo around his head, symbolizing his divine nature. As art and cultural influences evolved, so did the visual representation of Jesus. The image of Jesus with long hair and a beard, shaped by classical traditions, gradually became the dominant portrayal in Western art. Cultural influences on Jesus' image. However, not all depictions of Jesus fit the familiar Western image. Around the world, various cultures have portrayed Jesus in ways that reflect their own ethnic and cultural identities. This happens because people often depict religious figures to resemble themselves in terms of race and culture. In 2001, an intriguing project involving Israeli and British forensic anthropologists, computer programmers, and a medical artist sought to recreate a more historically accurate image of Jesus. They used a 1st century Israeli skull as a basis and combined computer modeling with knowledge of Jewish people's physical appearance during that time. The result was an image of Jesus that, while not an exact likeness, is considered by scholars to be more realistic than many traditional artistic representations. According to this research, Jesus likely had brown eyes, dark brown to black hair, and olive brown skin, traits common among people living in Judea and Egypt during that era. Based on the average height of men at the time, Jesus would have stood about 5 feet 5 inches tall, 166 centimeters, which was typical for men of that period. Some scholars believe that these newer images, showing Jesus with darker, possibly curly hair, darker skin, and brown eyes, are likely more accurate representations. However, despite these advancements in research and reconstruction, the exact appearance of Jesus may always remain a mystery. These descriptions may challenge the ongoing debate about Jesus' true appearance And they also raise questions about the visions experienced by Fossa and Solon. Ultimately, any painting or image that attempts to capture his divine glory will always fall short compared to the revelation that will occur when he returns. Many people are eagerly awaiting that day, excited to witness the true nature of Jesus in all his glory. So, what do you think? Was Jesus a white man or a black Nazarene? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more fascinating content like this. While you're here, click the video on your screen to explore more interesting topics.